Reem's is a place where we can be our truest selves. Also, that we are going to fight against the inequities of the restaurant industry. So I hired everybody that like from the neighborhood, like making sure that like people are paid above, you know, the wages, all of that. So I think people are paying attention.
That was Reem Assil, founder of and chef at Reem's, California. I'm Jeff, and this is Storied San Francisco, a podcast all about the artists, activists, and small businesses that make this city unique. This is part 2 of my episode on Reem. If you missed part 1, please go back and listen to that. In this episode, Reem takes us through her journey from playing soccer with an anti-imperialist team to enrolling in baking and business classes. Then she tells the story of how Reem's, California came to be. Do yourself a favor and try her food. They have 2 locations, one in the Mission and one at the Ferry Building. I don't know anyone else doing what Reem is doing in the Bay Area. It's so special and absolutely delicious. Here's Reem.
What was really cool about that was like, I mean, first of all, anti-imperialist soccer, like, who would have known? But the way that it was, like, it's like releasing the traumas of, like, soccer is a very popular sport all over the world. It's like, it's the people's sport, but here in the U.S., it's a very exclusionary sport. And the people who have access to it are the people who can afford the private soccer clubs and the high schools that have, like, well-endowed soccer teams. And there wasn't much space for women, for gender non-conforming folks, for folks of color, and so this was a welcoming space for all of those. So
and that
all
was
of
here
us,
in San Francisco.
It's still happening.
I love
it still
it.
happens.
I love it. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So you played.
Yeah, so I played
with them.
I played soccer in high school, and it was a really, again, part of like this. I wasn't good enough. You know, I never got much playing time. Nobody really invested in me. That kind of thing, and that thing of American sports of like win at any cost. And this was like a really great place where you didn't have to judge yourself. Anybody at any level could play. It was really just about the community building. Yeah, we played. We got our exercise. We always had a joke that it would put us in shape to run from the cops when we were out in our protests.
I love that because it's like,
like
the way a lot of people exercise. I'm like, what are you exercising for?
Yeah, for Armageddon.
No,
for
you
like,
knew.
From the
It's like-
fascists, you know.
Yep.
So we were like, we need to be in shape for that.
I love that.
So we were, I built a lot of my community from that. That was how I had met my, well, he's now my co-parent, but at the time my partner. Yeah. So it was like definitely a place that was formative. And so I had built these pockets of communities. I also dabbled in poker. I had like a little poker community.
Oh shit!
I know.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I built friends wherever I went in different pockets, and so
I love that.
And
this is like late 2000s,
like
that decade, and then
to I would say. So I was working in the nonprofit sector up until 2010.
Okay.
And I hit burnout, and part of it was like working in an Obama post in a recession era where things actually, I felt like may have even regressed under him because of all the damage that was done. I mean, this happens.
It's a cycle.
Yeah, it's a cycle. It just felt like things had. I guess one thing to note is when I moved back to the Bay Area, I was so obsessed with San Francisco that I wanted to live here. But it was like around 2004, and the .com boom had hit, and like it just was like insanely expensive to live anywhere. And so I had discovered Oakland by chance.
Yes.
And I was like, what is this place? Like, it just felt a lot more diverse than what I had seen in the Bay Area, in San Francisco proper. And so I ended up living there. And I was like, I've lived there for 20 years. So while this is about San Francisco, I mean, Oakland is very much a part of that story.
I love that. I was going to
my story kind of, in that era, really was East Bay.
Okay.
the organizations I worked with were East Bay and some South Bay, but I had kind of become a little bit estranged from what was happening in San Francisco from my anti-war days, although AROC, the Arab Resource and Organizing Center, was out here, but it was like organizing Arabs, you know, across both cities. And so, yeah, Oakland felt like there was a very special place in my heart for the work that I was doing, and I was building really deep with the communities I was organizing. And yeah, I was so burnt out. I was like working around the clock. My relationships were strained. I had no social time to be with friends, and I was like, there's got to be something better than this. And I felt like I had lost my voice of like what it is that I wanted. I don't know. I just wanted to take care of my community in a different way. And I think the last string was working at an organization that was so foundation driven that, you know, I would organize in one community and then the funding would like run out. And they're like, actually, we want to focus on this thing. And then like all the work that I had done and all the like trust I had built with this community to fight for this thing then had to be put on the back burner. I felt like it just didn't feel right to me. And so that was in 2010 where I was like, I need a break. And I went to the Arab world with my father. We had been really estranged at that point, you know, like I had kind of run away to San Francisco in a way. Like my parents were, my dad in particular, my mom followed me to California.
Oh, awesome.
And she was like, it's too expensive here. I'm going to go to LA at some point.
She's not wrong.
Yeah, she tried. That? She's like, I tried. And like, you know, my relationship, because I was trying to assert my own independence and figure out what my path was, separate from my parents' expectations of me. And so there was a lot of things there. But yeah, my dad presented this opportunity. He said he'd pay for it. I was like, okay, let's do it. I hadn't been since the crazy trip that had caused all the strife afterwards.
Straight after 9/11?
Right after 9/11. And I was
10 years or so.
Yeah, the thing that triggered whatever, parasite, whatever you want to call it, right? Sickness that I had for so many months after that. So I was like, let me face that. You know?
That's a big deal.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I went, and it was transformative, to sum it up in one word.
And you were already living in Oakland, or okay?
I met him in Boston, and we flew together with my youngest sister too, who I had actually also. I'd just been estranged from so many people in my family that this was just a really good trip for us. And I think there I learned a lot about my dad that I hadn't known before, and so it made him more human and more multidimensional.
Right.
I think he learned a lot more about me. He was really scared for me at that time, obviously. No parent wants to see their children go through that kind of strain. And it was in the food places that I fell in love with my people again. Like being in diaspora is really hard because you fell in love with an idea of a people, but when you go there, then you're like a little afraid because you're still kind of a visitor. And it was really in that trip where I was like, oh, this is my people.
And you felt it happening.
I felt it.
And you knew it because now
I was like, I want that feeling. I want to create that feeling for everybody. That feeling is like euphoric, you know, like when you walk into the bakery and you smell that bread and you hear the Arabic language and people are smiling at you and that connection. And in some way I felt that in California after being estranged in Boston where nobody looks at you, right? Like I think California has a little bit of that hospitality, but American culture in general is very individualistic and it's very hard to find spaces where with that neighborly connection where like you are a stranger but now you're my friend.
Now you're home.
Just you're home. That sense of home.
I love that.
So
that trip
was the moment that where I was like, I want that. I want to create this thing, this ambiance. I don't know what it's going to look like. It's going to be a bakery. It's going to be a small business.
Was it a specific place or just
a little bit of mix? Yeah. Like I have like memories of that trip. Are there
shout outs you want to give?
Shout out to the Armenian woman on the street side who like, and her very broken, she didn't even speak Arabic, was showing me with her hands how to like stretch this bread. It was like this very somatic experience
Yeah.
of like, I think like some family members in Syria, I remember I was like, they saw that I was really interested in the bread. They would like take me to their bakery after hours.
Awesome.
And I would see how the mixers worked.
Behind the scenes.
And behind the scenes.
Yes.
And that was really lovely. And then, all over Beirut, like just these bakeries and the young people on the campuses that were like eating the manouche. I was just like, my culture is so cool. It's like you also, for weird reason, internalize or become embarrassed of the tropes about your people. And you're like, not that I wanted to prove myself, but it just was like living proof that that like Arabs are not a monolith and that we enjoy our foods just like everyone else, and they're pretty freaking cool and relatable.
And delicious.
But like relatable. And
Correct.
So I think that when I came back, I was like twofold. I was like, I could do the thing that humanizes and breaks some of those tropes to combat some of this. I'm going to like make the word Arab a mainstream thing because people are afraid to say the word Arab. And up until Reems came on the scene, nobody was calling their food Arab or Arabic.
Interesting.
Because that was seen as like a derogatory term.
Right.
They were calling it Mediterranean or Middle Eastern, or like some Arab like owned businesses were like calling it Greek because they're afraid of the backlash to call it Palestinian or Syrian or Lebanon. Just call it from where it is. That was so weighted, right? They're like, that's going to affect my business. I'm an immigrant.
Yeah.
I'm working class. I can't do that, right? Like, I cannot afford to do that. And I was like, here I am, this privileged kid,
Right.
Like, I can, like, break through that mold and, like, translate this
I love that.
generation to this new generation. And so
I love that.
the audience that I was thinking of were people who have misunderstood Arab cuisine for so long. So that was one. But then second, and I think more importantly, and what I've leaned into that has kept me here for all this time, is that I wanted to offer this gift of Arab hospitality to the communities that I've been in, that I've been organizing in, that had lost a sense of home. Yeah, lost a sense of connection.
Would you say also that had been hospitable to you?
Maybe, yeah, a little bit.
At least your aunt and uncle and other communities you found
but
here?
But also, like, yeah, maybe. I was, like, I think I see myself in service a lot as an organizer.
Yeah.
But the way that I see organizing, it is a dialectical process that when you organize other people, when you build their own leadership, it comes back, you're building your own leadership.
Yeah.
And so there's something selfish about that in a way. It's
Sure.
like, it's a symbiotic. Like, I wanted to build home. I wanted to be that baker. That baker in the Arab world, that baker, everybody who comes in knows that baker's name. That baker knows about everybody's business. They're a part of the family. And I was I wanted that. And I felt very, especially as an organizer, like, working around the clock and not having that like connection in social life, like let me build community around me. But I also wanted to help people see the world that they're like, I was like, my previous job up until that trip was trying to convince developers and city elected officials and community members, like, it can be better than IKEA and Target in your neighborhoods. It could be this, it could be, and they couldn't even imagine, like, wait, what? Like, give them subsidy to, like, we can't do that, they'll go away. I'm like, no, they won't, like, because they, and so I was trying to convince them, like, when you have models that are, like, based in keeping people, not displacing people, that you can have development that is actually good for everybody. And nobody could see that. So I was like, let me just do it myself and figure it out.
Yeah.
Now, have I figured that out completely?
It's a process.
It's a process. But that was kind of like, let me just figure this out. And that was like, yeah. So
how did you start?
I just came back. I quit my job.
Did you have recipe? Like,
no, I quit my job. I was really burnt out still. So I literally like enrolled myself in a baking and pastry program. I went to school at Laney College.
Yes.
I was like, I'm going to be technically trained in this. I'm going to learn everything that I can so that I have legitimacy, because I don't want to just do anything. I knew I was an amateur baker. I knew the fundamentals, but like I wanted to like do it. I
From the
wanted
ground
to
up,
do
the
it
right way.
The right way. I wanted to do it from the ground up.
Yeah.
I was really lucky. I landed a job like with very little experience at Erzvendi Bakery and Pizzeria in Emeryville.
We've had them on the podcast.
Yeah.
We did a co-op series, and they were
cool.
part of it. Yeah. Love them.
I cut my teeth in learning how to
Yeah.
be a co-op member and a baker in that context. I was also a pastry chef. I was a bartender. Like I worked in different parts of the industry just to understand what I wanted and what I didn't want. And it was really good education for me. And then I think where I took the leap, it's hard to say. I knew I had this concept of Reem's, but I didn't know what it was going to look like or what it was going to be. But I knew that I was going to have the menouche, which is the iconic street food of Lebanon, Syria, Palestine, Jordan. That's like the street food that they enjoy. And I was like, I'm going to center it on that. Like I knew about business specialization to some extent.
Right.
I'm going to find this thing. And
The thing.
the thing, right? And I took while I was like in these jobs, which was a hard life, you know, like
the
it
hours,
was like the 4 o'clock
on your
in the morning,
feet.
on the feet. It was it was a grueling 5-6 years where I was doing that, but also I was taking any entrepreneurship class that you could think of in the Bay. I took it.
Is this when La Cocina comes in to the picture?
Exactly.
Okay.
So La Cocina was kind of the last program that I was like, I built a business plan because they were pretty competitive. You already had to have a concept, maybe even try to be in business.
Right. Can we just remind, because it's been a long time since my La Cocina episodes went out. Can we just remind listeners what La Cocina is in your words?
Yeah. So La Cocina is an incubator program for small female, mostly women, immigrant women and women of color, owned businesses to scale up their enterprises to be family sustaining and
based right down
it's
the
based
street
right here in the Mission.
Yeah.
And really it came out of a need when a lot of communities were working in the informal economy but were being pushed out of the market because housing was going up. And so the idea was like if we could actually formalize these businesses, they could afford to stay in the Mission and keep it vibrant and feed their families and their communities. And so it's a really, really amazing. It kind of helps level the playing field in terms of access. And it's not just like it's primarily a commercial kitchen, but it's like what a boutique business consulting program could provide for businesses without paying for it.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it removes some of those barriers. So I luckily got in. Showed them how I wanted to. My original concept was at the time where a lot of those like wood-fired Neapolitan pizza like mobile ovens were happening. I was like, I could do that with the menouche. They're like, are you sure you want to do that? That sounds expensive. So La Cocina was very pivotal in like helping me make good business decisions.
To ground you, let's say.
I bootstrapped. It was like a very hard first few years while I was in the program, but I learned a lot. I dabbled in everything from catering to special events, but I couldn't really create, because my product is a fresh baked to order bread product.
Right.
It needs a high heat apparatus. It needs an oven of some sort.
I was going to ask about that.
And that's where the Sage came in.
Okay.
The ubiquitous Sage. Sage is our traditional griddle for how we bake flatbreads.
Okay.
It's like an inverted tandoor.
Okay.
So it's like this domed comal, and then so you take the bread, you stretch it around a canvas, like a pillow type thing.
Yeah.
And then you slap it on this dome.
And
it sizzles up and it cooks it from that, and you get like kind of a pizza-like crust on the bottom, and then it cooks through. And then
I should
you
have
put
eaten
toppings.
before this podcast.
Yeah, and then you put toppings.
Oh my god!
Most notably the za'atar mix, which is the herbed like thyme, sumac berry, and sesame seed mix with olive oil. And then all you can do is smell that. It's like coming off, and it just bubbles up, and then you take it off the griddle. And then you can like have it by itself. You just fold it over and people eat it on the go. Or you stuff it with fresh veggies, tomatoes, cucumbers, mint are kind of the iconic mix. And then you roll it up and then you eat it on the go. And it's like super healthy street food. And I was like, how am I going to create that?
Yeah,
I
how,
can take
what,
that
where?
externally. That feels like a little bit more affordable than like trying to bring these ovens everywhere. And I was able, through my uncle having a connect to some remote village in Lebanon,
Amazing.
able to have 2 of them fabricated, and they shipped them. Like they like literally went on a plane and got held up in like with Air France for like a good 6 months.
That just
Was
tells me you're doing something right.
But yeah, that was kind of
And
how
then
we
they
got our
arrived.
start.
And what was that day like for you?
It was
like,
crazy.
Here
I
we
didn't know
go.
what I was doing.
Yeah.
We were able to prove our concept to the 22nd and Bartlett Mission Community Market. And then really the thing that I think put us over the top or got us like really popular was the farmers market in the back of the ferry building with what is now Foodwise. Quesa really at the time took a chance on us. They came to La Cocina. They're like, we're looking for some pop-up vendors, and like we could try as a pop-up. And then people really loved us. And we play, and it was, you know, we didn't know what we were doing at first, but like we'd have lines because people are waiting 40 minutes for their flatbread.
Right.
Because we were just trying to figure out our operations.
Yeah.
But
That's
we would
another
give
way of
people
making
Arabic
it.
tea and like have them wait, and
that's
we'd have
excellent.
the Arabic music, and it was just like, I was like, we created that vibe in this outdoor street food setting, and then like I think Reem's really got started to mold around that concept of Arab street food made with California love.
Boom.
And there it was. And then we moved from one farmer's market. We grew from 1 to 5 within, I think, 16 months or so.
Was it already called Reem's California?
It was Reem's. It started as Reem's, and then people started saying California. And I just kind of like, I'm like, yeah, Reem's California. Like, that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And so
and now
our logo kind of developed as we went along.
But also now, like, having heard most of your story, I'm like, it makes sense.
Yeah, it's my version of California. There's like a little play on words, and our logo actually is my name in Arabic.
Okay.
In calligraphy, and the flame in the middle says oven in calligraphy too. So there was a lot that went into thinking about it, but I wanted it to be kind of timeless, right? Like whether we're a street food stand or a bakery or a candy store, like you can expect to get this feeling when you walk into our space. And so, we really were able to accomplish that. We built a following in the farmers markets. People were writing about us. I mean, people loved the gimmick of watching. They had never seen anything like it. It was like moths to flame, like
the way you describe
literally
it.
like dough stretched, and like they're like, that's my flatbread baking.
Boom. I love it.
So and you could the way our menu is built is that you have like your base, and then you can add a little California love. So we take kind of iconic Palestinian or Syrian, Lebanese, like Levantine traditions, and they're not so different. I think that's the misconception about Arabic cuisine. They're like, oh, it's like a healthier, more Californianized version. I'm like, no, not really. Our terrain is the same way. We cook seasonally over there too.
Right.
It's just that when food was like, when immigrants came here, what they had access to was just very limited. They're not living off the land the way they were in their homelands.
Right.
They don't have access, and they have to just do what works and what's cheapest. And that's, it is what it is. But that's the explanation for it. And so, so we just, you can add a little avocado. We have the pali cali, which is like our bestseller, which is like a chicken braise, but then you add a little arugula, then that makes it a pali cali. And so everything is like, we're not one or the other. We're just kind of all of it. And we want anybody to walk in, whether you're Latinx or from the Midwest, who's never seen Arabic food, to feel something familiar in it, right? Whether it's the smell of the bread or like the warmth of the colors or the ingredient.
I'll
or
get
the
pictures.
Taste,
it's beautiful in here.
Yeah. So
and you're not even open today,
we're not open
but
yet.
it's very comfortable.
Yeah. Have you ever been
space.
here? Oh. It's okay. You could come by. Come by when
No,
you're
I know
open.
my
It's
wife.
It's a vibe.
My wife, who you met, has
Yeah.
been has had your food
Yeah.
many times. Has
And we're
been
very
here.
much like, we're like, we don't want to be cliche. We're not this like Arabian Nights concept. We're like,
no.
take
Right.
every trope that you have and throw it out the door. And like,
Yeah.
that's what we are. We're like,
Yeah.
we're very much Oakland. Here we're in the, like this mural here is an homage to Palestine and the mission.
Mm-hmm.
Like around it, it's the story of displacement, right? That
Right.
story of displacement
That's the
doesn't just,
connection.
it's the connection, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
and so I don't know some of the like little
The imagery,
things,
yeah.
but they're like, you know, like they're paying homage to some of the street artists who've been here. And,
Right.
you know, so that's like
Love
really
it.
cool. It tells us, for us, it's a story of place. Wherever we are, we want to be part of the community, and that's kind of the ethos.
Can we back up just real
Yeah.
quickly, because I think, and it was my fault, but we jumped ahead. How did this happen?
Oh yeah. So
you said you
slowly
get a
after
following
we had a
and-
following, and
We've-
La Cocina was like, I think it's time for you to move out. And we're like, no, we're not ready. You know, we're just
Scary.
like learning how to. I was a one-woman show. I had like a few people, but I was like bootstrapping all of it. And I was like, I don't have money to like open up a bakery. And they're like, we got you. And so they helped really figure out. We strapped together as much funding as we could, and they located this little corner spot in the transit village of Fruitvale Station in Oakland. And it was, at the time, this really rundown, like Chinese buffet,
Okay.
fast food joint that was really dilapidated. I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
are we really going to take this over? Like, I didn't see the vision. But La Cocina helped me see the vision, and we were part of an open table contest to like win our dream bakery, where I
Oh.
had to do a Kickstarter,
Okay.
and we raised money from the community, and then I strapped together a bunch of loans, and we revamped it and opened
So that was
up
the
this
first
little street
Reem's?
corner bakery in the Fruitvale in 2017.
17. Okay.
And it was, you know, I think it had its own challenges being a business in Oakland, but it was this really vibrant community hub. We had been named in 2018 the best new restaurants in America
Oh,
by
shit.
Food and Wine magazine.
Oh, whoa. Okay.
And so all of a sudden I found myself, and I learned I was pregnant.
Yeah.
And
Everything all
you
at
know,
once.
Everything all at once. It was all at
Yes.
once. You know, going to Aspen, that was like crazy. I was like,
Jeez,
still had
yeah.
imposter syndrome. Like,
Yeah.
We didn't know anybody was paying attention to what we were doing.
Right.
Like people started writing about it. I think because also I was very outspoken about the intersection of social justice and politics, like I wanted to be my whole self, and so we were very clear that like Reem's is a place where we can be our truest selves. Also, that we are going to fight against the inequities of the restaurant industry. So, I
Yeah.
hired everybody that like from the neighborhood, like making sure that like people are paid above.
Yep.
You know,
Yep,
the wages, all
Yep.
of that. So I think people are paying attention, and
Yeah.
we got it was a lot. And then somewhere in between there, I opened a fine dining restaurant in partnership with a
Oh.
Michelin star chef.
Okay.
And
I don't think I knew
that was
part
really,
of
really,
the
really
story. Mm-hmm.
popular, and it was in Jack Leonard Square, and it was really successful. But the partnership didn't feel like it aligned with my values, and
Right.
so I walked away from it, which was really
Okay.
painful because I like built this beautiful fine dining restaurant that was really
Right.
the recipes and the stories of my people.
And
And
you were still serving Arabic food there?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the Reems was making all the bread for it. It was like
Got
this
it.
really beautiful kind of concept. And then 2000, that was in 2019,
Pandemic.
where the women, it was still like we didn't know what was coming, but then in 2019, right around the time I walked away from that partnership, I was feeling pretty, demoralized about
Yeah.
that, because it's like I wish I could have just bought the partner out and like had the restaurant, but I just couldn't afford to do that. And Reem's was kind of struggling at that time, just from the ebbs and flows of business. We had a small kitchen
This is over in Fruitvale.
in Fruitvale.
It's a
Yeah, we
spot,
couldn't
yeah.
really have a business model where we could do the large scale catering we wanted.
Right.
which was really carrying our business.
Got it.
And the gals at Mission Pie reached out to me and they're like, we're leaving.
Oh,
And fun fact, along with the farmers markets, we also, this location, when it was Mission Pie, was our first pop-up
oh,
here in San Francisco.
okay.
So we had Manusha Mondays where we would
Yeah.
run the pop-ups out of here.
Starting when?
In 2015 or 2016, like way back when.
See,
you
now
know?
I'm bummed because I lived in the Mission until 2017.
Yeah, it was right
So
around
there's an
that
overlap.
time. Yeah, there was probably an overlap there. Yeah,
I was on 20th
2015.
Street,
Yeah,
and
it was leading up to.
I just didn't know. I'm
Yeah,
so sorry.
it was okay. It was okay.
I'm not
Those were
sorry now
lovely,
because
though,
now I
but,
know.
like, we learned how to run. We were like trying to see what that looks like. And,
Okay.
yeah, they
So
were
they
like,
said
we
we're
think you
leaving.
should take this over. We were not looking to move to San Francisco. Definitely, I was like, oh, that.
It's like
But,
17
the
times
rent
more
at that time-
expensive.
exactly. It was
Yeah.
still more expensive, but it was still a good deal for at the time, right?
Okay,
Things
right.
had skyrocketed here
Right.
at the Mission, so it was actually
Right,
a good
right.
deal.
Okay.
But then we didn't have a grand opening.
Okay.
Our soft opening
Was
was 3
scheduled.
days before the shutdown.
4. Okay. Do you happen to know either Jillian or Casements down on Mission? It's it's an Irish bar that opened in the last couple years.
I don't know
I don't know if
if
this
I know
rings a
them
bell.
well, yeah.
They have a very similar story of like
Yeah.
they did all the work and they
We
were
did all the work. I spent every last penny I
so
had.
ready. Yeah. Yeah.
And we were like, we need to get open. And then the shutdown happened. And it was devastating. Our Fruitville location plummeted. It was in a BART transit center. So it,
Right.
And the people in this neighborhood didn't know we were around. But we found our stride here. We're very, we didn't have the same problem that other restaurants had, which is that our product lends itself really well to a takeout, but it's just that we didn't. It's the antithesis of Arab hospitality.
Of what we were talking about,
What we're
of
talking
space
about, that
and-
space. So we
yeah.
had to be really creative. But those years were like, we did so many different kind of cool things. We were exhausted by it, but we did meal kits and. We found ways to connect with our community. Let's
Yeah.
just say that. But they were
Scary.
really challenging years.
Scary.
Yeah.
Easy in hindsight because you're here now,
We're here now.
but scary
and
at the
then,
time.
And then we eventually opened about 18 months ago a little spot in the Ferry Building as
nice.
well. So
I saw you're going to be at Outside Lands. Is that right?
we've been in
Okay.
Outside Lands for a couple of years.
Oh,
So
okay.
things, I think we chose during those times to really invest in our employees.
Yeah.
And then somewhere in that time, I also had the crazy idea that this is going to be a worker-owned space,
Excellent.
and kind of true to my roots of Arizmendi. So we're going
Worker
through
owned,
that-
but is it not technically co-op?
It will be
there can be a little
technically
difference.
co-op. There's
or-
different
Yeah.
models for co-ops, but kind
Right,
of
right.
where we landed. So we worked with different consultants, and then I ran an apprenticeship program to get my employees ready for ownership.
Awesome.
Because one of the things I really wanted to do was make sure you have to do well to do good, right? You can't. We needed to make sure the business is viable before it's a co-op, but we also wanted to make sure that our employees felt like they had something to stay for, because it was really at that point there was a mass exodus of employees from.
Right.
So to them, it's gonna get better.
It's like both meanings of ownership, right?
Yeah, it's like we're gonna give you stake and we're
financial,
gonna give
but
you
also
say.
say. Yeah, exactly.
So we are kind of structuring it in that I am selling all my shares to the employee body,
Okay.
and the co-op, it will be another entity that owns everything. So it's not just this
Love
location or that. You're part of like a bigger thing than just yourself, and then it will be governed by the employees. So they will have a board of 5 members that are democratically elected, and I will sit on that board. Even though I don't have shares, I will take an earnout.
You're a founder
Yeah, I'm
of this
a
place,
founder.
so
I'm
like
gonna help
yeah.
make sure, and as long as I have incentive to help the business. I mean, I have more than just the earnout incentive, but
Right.
playing a backseat role and just being the face of the business, so that I could do more creative things and not
I
be
love
in the
it.
operation. So
I'm just realizing we need to wrap soon, but in addition to you checking all 3 boxes of what my tagline for this show is, I'm just realizing La Casina and I mean, I've done
Co-ops,
series about these things.
Yeah,
So
I overlap with both of them.
I've known about you, even though I tried your food for the first time at the POC Food and Wine Fest, and I still get chills. It was a hug and a spoon.
It's a hug and a spoon. That's what we say.
Amazing. Yeah. But you're like a dream for what I'm doing with this. So thank you. Thank you for doing what you do, and thank you for joining.
Yes, thank you for
today.
having me.
Is there any? A couple things. I want to get in your voice, like telling folks where to follow you, your hours, maybe your address, or just the intersect or something like that.
Yeah. So you can find us in our Mission location. We're right here on the corner of 25th and Mission, 2901 Mission Street. Tuesdays through Saturdays, we're going to be opening for dinner soon. Oh. Yeah, we're really excited about that. Or at the Ferry Building, Tuesdays through Sundays, 10 to 8. And you can follow us on the socials at Reem's California, or if you want to see my whereabouts, I'm popping all over the country promoting my cookbook.
Nice.
At Reem.Assil.
Thank you. And the cookbook, where can people find that?
Arabia, anywhere where Arabia, it's called, Recipes from the Life of an Arab in Diaspora, anywhere where cookbooks are sold, or on that website that I will not name.
Thank you for not naming it. I was like, I'll just say it.
Just go to your local bookstore. Yeah, or you could go on
go.
my link in my bio, which will get you right to Penguin Random House.
Got it. Okay, the thing that I want to wrap with, every season on my show, I have a theme, and this season, we're in the 6th season, kind of heading toward the end, but the theme this season is We're All in It. This entire conversation, which is an hour and 13 minutes now, I feel like has been touching on that. But what does that mean to you, We're All in It?
It's freedom or bust for all of us. We're all interconnected in some sort of way. So us supporting one another is going to benefit us all in the long run. And we saw that in the pandemic. Somehow we forgot a little bit, but I think with the world affairs now, and so we're all in it. And if you want community spaces like Reem's that are tied in roots and place and justice, you need to invest in it. And we all get to benefit from that, so.
That was Reem Assil. On the next episode of Storied San Francisco, meet Ezekwe Anderson of Rise Up Bakery. Episode 20 drops next Tuesday, wherever you get podcasts. Music for Storied San Francisco was produced, performed, and curated by Otis McDonald. Aaron Lim of Bitch Talk Podcast is our contributing producer. And the show is produced and hosted by me, Jeff Hunt. Now in our 6th season, we have more than 200 episodes available on our website, storiedsf.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're able to, please rate and review the show, and drop us a line at storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Keep rejecting those silly doom loop narratives about our city. Stay wacky, weird, healthy, and creative. And we'll see you next time on Storied San Francisco. We acknowledge and respect the first humans of the unceded land we call San Francisco, the Ramaytush Ohlone. We condemn the genocide of these and other tribes across the Western Hemisphere. We honor their legacy and history, and we support rematriation and sovereignty efforts.
This podcast is a proud member of the BFF.FM podcast network. Learn more at podcasts.bff.fm.
BFF.FM, best frequencies forever.